Welcome back. So power rankings times for the Australian Grand Prix. Really chaotic race. I had a pretty good idea of where I thought all the teams wanted to be uh, before the second red flag, and then I think unfortunately that red flag caused quite a few changes to what I thought was gonna where I thought I was gonna put each driver. But we'll get started right away. 20th place, dropping down 3 spots from last race is Logan Sargent. So for Sargent, a bit of a tough weekend. It's the first track where I think he has absolutely no experience in the lower formula, and he had a bit of a scruffy qualifying, made that mistake on one of his laps, knocked down Q1, whereas Albon made Q3, and then the race never really looked in it that much, and then made that kind of a pretty bad mistake at the last restart, basically just plowing debris into the gravel trap and taking both of them out of the race. 19th, moving up 1 spot from last weekend, is De Vries. Simply on the basis of Sargent being last, and De Vries moves up. So again, not a great race for De Vries. Got into Q2 this race, but in the race didn't really ever look comfortable, was dropping down the order quite a bit, and never really looked close to his teammate Sonoda, and I think was a bit unfortunate to get taken out by Sargent. Number 18, dropping 6 places, tied most of any driver this race, is Valtteri Bottas. So I thought really poor weekend for Bottas, extremely anonymous, was outqualified by Zhou again, and in the race he was just kind of nowhere, kind of drifting towards the back, and we never really saw him on screen, and he wasn't really making any overtakes either. And somehow, despite 8 drivers not finishing the race, he gets no points today from the Australian Grand Prix as well. Number 17, also moving down 6 positions, is Kevin Magnussen. So for Magnussen, I think really a weekend to forget. Was outqualified quite comprehensively by his teammate Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg well into Q3 and was looking great, was mixing it up with the Astons and the Ferraris in Q1 and Q2, whereas Magnussen was out very early. And the race was not much better. He was kind of in the lower point positions, did get a couple of nice moves, but then made that really costly mistake, hit the wall, causing the second red flag. Number 16, moving down 1 position, is Esteban Ocon. So for Ocon, not a great weekend. Was outqualified by Gasly, had a bit of bad luck there, but the race was a little bit better. I think was quite unlucky with the restart, or not the restart, with the red flag, because I believe he was one of the drivers that came into the pits. Yes, I believe he was one of the drivers to come into the pits under the safety car before the red flag was called. But at the same point, not a great race overall, and he was kind of taken out without any fault of his own by his teammate Gasly at the restart, at the last restart. Number 15, moving up 3 positions, I thought overall a really good race until the very end, and that was Carlos Sainz. So for Sainz, outqualified his teammate Leclerc. I thought had a really excellent start, got a really nice overtake on Stroll, and then got a really nice overtake on Gasly as well and cut back to the field after the misfortune with the first red flag. I think the penalty for spinning Alonso at the second restart was a bit harsh, but I think it was warranted. It was very much entirely his fault, and it had very bad consequences for Alonso. I think, the stewards don't take into consideration the race ending under a safety car or the previous lap's result being reinstated. You have to look at the action for what it is, and I think assessing a penalty based on that. But for the 95% of the weekend, I think it was pretty good and a very good improvement from the first 2 weekends for Sainz. Number 14, moving up 5 positions, Nico Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg, I think, was one of the big stars of qualifying. And then in the race, I think they were worried about tire management. I think that did show. But that being said, he still got 7th place, 6 points, really good points on the board for Haas, for any of the lower midfield teams who are going to be scrapping for those lower positions for any normal race. And he looked very good, and he looked very close to his old self, and really had shades of 2018 today. Number 13, moving up 3 positions, Zhou Guangyu. So for Zhou, pretty solid race, gets his first points of the season with a 9th place finish. Out-qualified Bottas and looked pretty racy, had a nice overtake on Tsunoda, and was kind of kept it clean, whereas others didn't, and he was able to capitalize on that and get some nice points. Number 12, moving up one position, Oscar Piastri. So for Piastri, finally gets his first F1 points after 3 races. Probably not how we expected it. I think his race was alright, not great. I think his race in Jeddah was a bit better, but his qualifying got out-qualified by Norris, and Norris looked quite a bit more comfortable than him and was quite a bit faster in the race. But at the same point, he was there to pick up the pieces and capitalize. So moving up one position is Oscar Piastri. Number 11, moving down 5 positions, is Alex Albon. So Albon, excellent qualifying, again, like Hulkenberg, one of the stars of qualifying. The start of the race was great. He gained a position on Stroll, but then it all went wrong, and when he oversteered, went a bit too deep, he put a bit too much throttle in the car going into turn 6 and lost it, went in the gravel, eventually causing the safety car and the red flag. And given where he was at that point in the race, and given everything else that happened in the race, he could have gone P4, P5, P6, which would have been absolutely massive for Williams this year, and that could have had massive ramifications for the Constructors' Championship at the end of the year. So, big mistake there for Albon. So moving down 5 positions to 11th. Now into the top 10. So Albon, the only driver to move out of the top 10, with one driver moving into the top 10. So number 10, staying in the same position as last race, is Lance Stroll. So for Stroll, I honestly didn't think he had a great race. Out-qualified again by Alonso, lost positions to Albon on the first start, lost position to Gasly on the restart, and then on the second restart, he just kind of went straight through turn 3, and I think he was quite fortunate that the order was reinstated from the lap before. But he did get solid points, and he didn't really make any big mistakes besides going through the gravel trap. So for now, Lance Stroll 10th. Number 9, moving up 5 positions, was Lando Norris. So for Norris, got the car into Q2, couldn't get the car into Q3. I really think that was the most he got out of the car, and it had a really excellent race, I thought. Had some good battles with Tsunoda and Ocon as well, I believe, and was able to keep it clean, kept it on the road, and got some really nice haul of points in 6th place today. So that's 9th for Lando Norris. Number 8, moving down 4 positions from last race, is Charles Leclerc. So for Leclerc, absolute disaster of a weekend, I think, overall. Was out-qualified by Sainz, didn't really look great in Q3. I think, obviously, there was some miscommunication between him and his engineer, which maybe contributed a bit to that low grid position. But, the race was, I think, entirely on him. Had a pretty good start, but then basically tried to go around the outside of Stroll into turn 3. Basically acted as if Stroll just disappeared and just kind of steered into the space where Stroll had to be. And it then sent him into a spin, beached himself in the gravel trap at turn 3, and his race was over. Don't think a podium was on the cards, but definitely top P4, P5. And I think in that fight between P2, P3, P4 and the constructors, that could be a massive amount. And I think it was entirely on him. So Charles Leclerc moving down 4 positions. Number 7, moving down 2 spots from last race, is Pierre Gasly. So for Gasly, similar to Sainz, the first 95% of the race was really, really excellent. Really good qualifying, got good positions off the start, and then got position on Stroll at the restart. So he was up in fourth place, I believe, at one point, and then 5th for most of the race. The restart, he just went too aggressive on the restart, and then was way too aggressive coming back onto the track after he went off at turn 1. Collides with his teammate, they both come out, and Alpine ends up with no points. After they probably should have ended up with 10, 12 points. So not great for Gasly, but the first 95% of the race was pretty good, but nonetheless moving down 2 points for Gasly. Number 6, moving up 2 positions, Yuki Tsunoda. So for Tsunoda, finally gets points on the boards this year. 10th place, which is going to be probably less than his efforts today deserved. Really good in qualifying yesterday. Out-qualified his teammate. I doubt maybe he could have gotten into Q3. I don't really think the car is honestly awful. That AlphaTauri car is awful. So Q3 I don't think was on the cards. The race he got up to P8. I think didn't pit under the safety car and then gained those positions after the red flag. I think he did as well as he could, even though he was dropping down the order quite a bit, given how the race pace of that car. He had an absolutely epic second restart. Was up till P5, I believe. And then, unfortunately, it was kind of unfortunate for the order to be taken back from the lap before. But nonetheless, really good effort overall this weekend. And he's been very consistently good, I think, every single weekend this year. And he moves up 2 spots on my power rankings for his efforts. Number 5, moving up 4 positions from last race, Lewis Hamilton. First podium of the year, second place. I think he was probably the best weekend overall of any of the drivers in the 2 to 4 range, the Merc Aston Ferrari battle. Race pace looked really good, was really comfortable in second, didn't really look to be under any pressure from Alonso, but wasn't really able to put any pressure on Verstappen either. That being said, Russell, his teammate, had an excellent start and excellent qualifying. Maybe there's a bit more there. And I think, but overall, Hamilton will be very happy with his race, and he should be. I think, he got the most out of the car today for where it is. Number 4, moving down 1 position, is Sergio Perez. So for Perez, obviously a very compromised weekend, starting yesterday in qualifying. He has said in interviews on the radio that it's a curve problem. Dr. Helmut Marko has said it's not a car problem, and Horner basically said it wouldn't really say one way or the other. I looked at some onboards. Other people looked at some onboards, and they said that Perez braked quite a bit later than Verstappen did at Q1, and I kind of agree. Perez probably should have been a bit more cautious, given it is only Q1. Set a banker lap, see where the car is at, make sure it's comfortable. The race was okay. I think he was a bit unfortunate with the timing of the red flags. But nonetheless, he did pick his way through the field. He probably was going to finish 8th, 7th, 6th behind Stroll, I think, before the second red flag. And then he basically just went off at turn 1 under the restart, and then came back 10th, and then was one of the ones that was lucky to get their position reinstated. But nonetheless, a very scrappy weekend, and this is where the gap in the championship to his teammate really starts to build. So for Perez, moving down 1 spot to 4th. Number 3, moving up 4 positions, is George Russell. So for Russell, I think a really unfortunate result, but on Russell's side, I think he performed very well this weekend. P2 in qualifying, ahead of his teammate Hamilton, got an excellent start, took the lead of the race, looked in control, and I think he was a bit unfortunate with the safety car red flag kerfuffle there. If that doesn't happen, his engine doesn't blow up, I don't think he's going to win the race, but he probably would finish P2. And I think he was just really unfortunate with both the red flag timing and then his engine going boom a couple laps later. So number 2, in the same position as last race, is Fernando Alonso. So for Alonso, I think maybe could have gotten a bit more out of the car in qualifying, but in the race, I think maybe could have gotten Hamilton, but still really excellent race for Alonso. Kept it clean, beat his teammate Stroll in both the race and qualifying, and I thought did a really overall job, and he's had an absolute dream start to his career at Aston Martin. Now, that leaves number 1, same position as last race, is your championship leader, Max Verstappen. Now, I honestly think that this was Verstappen's worst race of the year. Qualifying was pretty good. Didn't really set a perfect lap, but a lap that was good enough for qualifying for pole, especially since his teammate was out. And in the race, I think, he had a poor start, lost P1 and P2, so it was P3 until the red flag, or was P3 until the safety car, and then Russell pits. He obviously made his move on Hamilton, and then just kind of built the gap up to 10 seconds or so, but then made that mistake where he kind of went a bit deep into turn 13 and lost himself 3 seconds. If that was a very close fight for the lead, that mistake could have been a lot more costly. But nonetheless, because of his massive advantage, he was able to hold on. But that being said, still a mistake, and But given how good he's been the first 2 races in the season, he still stays P1. So that's my power rankings for the Australian Grand Prix. Obviously a very long wait now, but I'll do my best to try to fill in with as much F1 content as I can until Azerbaijan. So thank you so much for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. What are your power rankings? Who have been your best drivers to start the season so far? Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.